Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable and the RICO 12 family of recovery resources targeted at people from all backgrounds, faiths, and places dealing with addictions of all varieties. RICO 12 is a resource for all of these people, and I'm grateful to be the steward of these resources. My name is Justin B. I am a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a multidisciplinary addict living in the miraculous recovery that is promised in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm blessed to be joined today by David G. and Nikki M. The three of us are striving to live this miracle of recovery in our lives one day at a time. I'm quickly going to get to them and have them introduce themselves here right now. David, why don't you jump in here and tell us about yourself, a little bit about what's going on in your life?
Absolutely, Justin. Grateful to be here. Thank you for your service as always. Everybody, my name is David G. I am an alcoholic and addict of many sorts. I've been in the rooms recovered for almost 30 years now. Very grateful to be here at this roundtable, and a lot of great things going on in life. The miracle just continues to grow. The widening circle, as we'll read toward the end of this chapter. So thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you, David. And I'm super happy and blessed to be able to be here with you. Nikki, I'm also blessed and happy to be with you. Tell us about what's going on with you and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Nikki M., and I'm a beautiful child of God. And I'm just so grateful to be here with you guys. You know, I've been looking forward to this, and it's really great because I've been able to learn so much doing this. It's limitless expansion. And so I'm just really open-minded today. I'm just open-minded like a little baby coming to the table with two other children of God. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. I love sitting around this virtual roundtable with you guys and jumping into the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today, we're going to continue our reading in Bill's story. We'll be starting on page 8, starting at the paragraph that starts with near the end of that bleak November. And here we're going to be talking about, Bill W. and Ebby's meeting at the at Bill's kitchen table. And there's a lot in here. I'm going to get in and read about it, and then we will have some discussion about it. All right. Everybody grab your big books. Once again, page 8, and we'll start there and get into this. Near the end of that bleak November, I sat drinking in my kitchen. With certain satisfaction, I reflected there was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through that night and the next day. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dared hide a full bottle of gin near the head of our bed. I would need it before daylight. My musing was interrupted by the telephone. The cheery voice of an old school friend asked if he might come over. He was sober. It was years since I could remember his coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Rumor had it that he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. I wondered how he had escaped. Of course, he would have dinner, and then I could drink openly with him. Unmindful of his welfare, I thought only of recapturing the spirit of other days. There was that time we had chartered an airplane to complete a jag. His coming was an oasis in this dreary desert of futility. The very thing, an oasis. Drinkers are like that. The door opened and he stood there, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? I pushed a drink across the table. He refused it. Disappointed but curious, I wondered what had gotten into the fellow. He wasn't himself. "Come, what's all this about?" I queried. He looked straight at me. Simply but smilingly, he said, "I've got religion." I was aghast. So that was it. Last summer, an alcoholic crackpot. Now I suspected a little cracked about religion. He had that starry-eyed look. Yes, the old boy was on fire, all right. But bless his heart, let him rant. Besides, my gin would last longer than his preaching. But he did no ranting. In a matter-of-fact way, he told how 2 men had appeared in court, persuading the judge to suspend his commitment. They had told of a simple religious idea and a practical program of action that was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked. He had come to pass his experience along to me if I cared to have it. I was shocked, but interested. Certainly I was interested. I had to be, for I was hopeless. Man, there is so much crammed into this page, a little over a page of reading here, so much history and so much power. Let's get into that and see, David, what are some of the things that you would like to point out as points of interest in this reading today?
Well, this is a very, very powerful part of the book for me to not only read, but to pay close attention to in my own life. When I take people through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, we always look at this in the first person. Now, if I read about Bill and all that he did, that'll probably lose me pretty quick. But you're right, there is so much here, and there is so much history here. And we have to remember at the top of page 8, in that first paragraph there where he said no words could tell, that Bill had taken the first step there. But Bill drinks again on November the 11th, and Armistice Day. And so he's gone again. He has no solution. I've done that I don't know how many times through the years. And so, but you're right. There's a lot of history here. And I'd like to just kind of pick up and recap some of what you read there. Near the end of that bleak November, which was November 11th, and we know that Bill has started drinking again. I sat in my kitchen with a certain satisfaction. I reflected. So Bill's meditating. He's just not doing it in the right way. I think many of us already know how to meditate when we get here. I can remember a Rolling Stone song from the 80s all day long, but when it comes to sitting and reflecting on anything about God or spirit, I just can't seem to do that for some reason. And definitely not when I'm in the state of mind that he's here. He is here. So he reflects that there's enough gin to get him by. He wonders whether he dare hide a full bottle of gin because he'll need it before daylight. But this is interrupted by a man by the name of Ebby Thatcher. Now, Ebby was Bill's old drinking buddy. They had had a lot of bouts together. So Bill knew if anybody could get sober, if Ebby Thatcher was sober, anybody could get sober. So Ebby shows up, and that's the cheery voice of an old school friend. Asked if he might come over. He was sober. And Bill says, it was years that I could remember his coming to New York in that condition. I was amazed. Rumor had it he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. So Ebby, Bill's old friend here, is drinking. He's crazy. He's doing all this stuff. And he keeps getting in trouble, and he goes to jail. And as history reads it, his family had a lot of money. Ebby's family had a lot of money. And so they stepped in and said, hey, why don't we just send him out to what's called the Old Summit Place? It was called the Old Summit Place. And we'll send him out there and let him get sobered up a little bit. And while he's out there, we'll have him to do some work around the place. It's in the summertime. And so he gets out there and he starts to sober up a little bit. He begins to paint the house, and he paints the wall on the side of the barn or something like this. And a bunch of pigeons come by and they do some droppings on it, and he's very upset. So he goes inside of the house and he gets a shotgun. He comes out, he begins to shoot at these pigeons in the air. Well, the nearby neighbors, thought, oh my God, what's he doing over there? He's drunk, he's crazy, he's got a gun. And so they called the sheriff. And in those days, they could lock you up for what was called alcoholic insanity. And so that's what Bill said. Rumor had it he had been committed for alcoholic insanity. So that's what happened. They took him to court. They're going to, they admit him for alcoholic insanity. 2 men are going to show up that are going to help him out. They're going to persuade the judge to take him and let them keep a good eye on him. They're going to begin to take him to the Oxford group meetings, which were run by a man named Frank Buckman. And that mission, the Calvary missions, was the headquarters for the Oxford group in New York City. So while Ebby's laying there one night, he begins to think, a big part of this deal about staying sober is helping somebody. I wonder who I could help. And he remembers his friend Bill. And so, the story is, and the history on it's a little bit different, because he calls up and nobody answers for a while. He has to do this a few times. And then when he gets there that evening, the way you would read it here, it was just he and Bill that sat down and began to have dinner. But there was Bill, there was Lois, and then they rent a place upstairs. There was another lady that was at this dinner as well. And there's just a lot of history to it. I don't want to take up a lot of time by going into this, but And Bill says this: I thought only of recapturing the spirit of other days. There was a time we chartered an airplane to complete a JAG. His coming was an oasis in this dreary desert of futility. The very thing drinkers are like that. So he opens the door. Here's Ebby. Think about that in our own life. We have somebody who showed up, who showed us something different. We had a moment of clarity. Whoever that was our Ebby. He says, I pushed a drink across the table. He refused it. So he starts questioning. And so Ebby says this to him: I've got religion. And that does not sit well with Bill at all. Bill does not like the simple religious idea. And I'm definitely glad in my own life that when I sat down with my sponsor for the first time, he didn't tell me that, because had he, I probably wouldn't have hung around. So anyway, they go at this for a little while. The second to the last paragraph, this is what the 12th step of Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. He did no ranting. In a matter-of-fact way, he told how two men had appeared in court, persuading the judge to suspend his sentence. So one of these men was a man by the name of Roland Hazard. We're going to read about Roland as we move on through this book. But the other one is a man by the name of Seeper Graves. And Seeper came into the picture, and, he got sober, and he was a big part of all of this as well. But here's what happened. They had told of a simple religious idea. We know that today to be step 2 in Alcoholics Anonymous. And a practical program of action. We know that today to be steps 3 through 12. That was 2 months ago, and the result was that self-evident. It worked. He'd come to pass this experience along to me. So when Ebby left there that night, Bill knew 3 things that nobody else knew. 1, he knew the problem. He had got that from Dr. Silkworth, and I think we looked at that back on page 7. He knew about the physical allergy. He got the solution from Ebby that night, too, because Ebby told him of a simple religious idea. But the third thing that he knew was he knew the practical program of action, which was used by the Oxford groups of that day. Now, most people, including myself, know that when we come to this program, it's not very hard for me to figure out that I'm going to have something greater than me. I'm going to have something greater than me in order to relieve what is wrong with me. But what we don't know is the problem. And this is what nobody knew except Bill, because he had got that information about the physical allergy from Dr. Silkworth. And so he left there knowing 3 things that nobody else knew. He's already taken step 1, but he's drinking again. And so top of 10, he says, if I cared to have it, I was shocked but interested. Certainly I was. I had to be, for I was hopeless. And all of this time, a great awakening is getting ready to happen to Bill, unlike anyone ever at that time. And so this is a beautiful story of how it unfolds from here. And it's the very same thing that happens to us. Whenever we come in and we hit that bottom with step 1, if we don't have a solution, we're probably going to fall back into those behaviors pretty quick. But today we have what they call the religious idea. We don't call it that. We call it belief in a power greater than self. And we know that steps 3 through 12 is a program of action. So like Bill said, that was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked. It has worked for me for many, many years now. And I'm just very grateful to be a part of this. You guys are just awesome. And I'm looking forward to hearing Nikki today. And Justin, thank you so much for inviting me to come sit at this table. It's always a pleasure and a gift. Thank you.
You got it, David. Thank you so much for digging into the history of that. Nikki, what are a few things that stuck out at you in this reading that you'd like to point out in your own experience?
Well, thank you so much, because everything I related to, and we need that history, because I need to hear that Lois was at the table. David, thank you. I need to hear that other people are there, because, I'm told a lot of times I'm not welcome in rooms because I don't suffer that addiction. It sounds like everyone is welcome, even back then. These facts are so important, so I'm grateful. In that first paragraph, my line out, these are all plans and designs. And Justin, when I go through the book, I sat thinking. That's what I like to do. Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki M, and I'm a hardcore fantasy addict. I like to nurse on thoughts till I can't think anymore. And so that's what that's me. I like to do that. And I just put, this is where it says, he needs more gin. before, out of bed. I would need it before daylight. That's me. That's me and my progressive disease. I need more of anything before I can get out of bed, or I'm not getting out of bed. And at the bottom of my page, I have, without a solution, I'm always going to think. I'm always going to do whatever. I need the solution. And then I love here where it says, because that was me. It's like, I wonder how he escaped. I'm always like, I wonder how that person did that. How did that person do that? That curiosity in me. And I'm always like, what happened? I have these highlighted here. Like, I'm curious. We're seekers. I should also say, hi, I'm Nikki M. I'm a seeker. See, that's always been innate in me. I'm always seeking the way Bill is seeking something. I'm seeking something, and I'm the hopeless variety. I love this here because I spend a lot of time here. I thought only of recapturing the spirit of other days. I'm a fantasy addict. That's why later in the book, that's a huge instruction, must not drift. May you find God now, because I'm not going to find anything recapturing the spirit of yesteryears or even future years. And that's, I love to see that Bill has the same thought pattern that I do, just this nursing of thoughts. And then when his friend comes, and I know this feeling too, it's like when you push a drink, he pushed the drink across and his friend's like, no, it's like, there's the separation. I'm not part of, I'm different. My friends are doing something different. I don't fit in. I'm alone. There's the thinking about, I'm disappointed by my friends. He's not himself. Why don't I get my old friends back that like to go out and do what I do? They've evolved and I haven't. This is my story. And he wasn't himself because, as David said, Ebby was reborn. That's the promise. You're not yourself. It's a whole nother person. And then I have highlighted, and this really hit me. I wanted to reread this stuff and then look over it before we sit at the table. And Cameron, my first sponsor, always says this to me: the old girl's on fire, all right. He's always like, because I'll be at a meeting and he's like, yeah, the old girl's on fire. Can you believe Nikki said that? The old girl's on fire. That's me. I do that. And then as David's pointed out, the no ranting. Well, isn't that what they tell us to do? No preaching, no crusading. We're the person who we make the approach, just a sincere desire to be helpful. No attitude of holier than thou. The book just repeats itself. It says that on page 18, I think 18 or 19, it tells us how to sponsor. Well, that's not just how to sponsor, that's how to live life. So I don't, no ranting. And then here, my line out with on that last paragraph where it's just, this is a simple program. It's so simple religious ideas, practical program. I had my sponsee the other day, Google program. If you don't have a program inside of you, how are you going to run? And your old programming, bottom line, is just corroded and corrupted. You've got a big virus in it. He was a computer programmer. See, I have to speak their language at first when I get my sponsees in here, make them relate to a program. And this is action. So you can read the steps all you want. Because, Justin, who I sponsor a lot of dry drunks. They're sober, lots of sobriety time, but they are not free. They're acting out on other behaviors. So I have to show them that this is a simple program of action and simple religious ideas. Every religion has such simple common ideas like love each other. Just basically help your neighbor. It's so simple, but not easy. And then, of course, it's like I circled if, because there's always a caveat. His friend came to pass the experience along to him. And my friends, well, there it is. The hand of God is everywhere. It's always, you see it all through the book. It's like, it's in Bill's life. And now we're seeing it in Ebby's life. The hand of God is even working in Ebby. It's like everywhere is the hand of God. And so if I care to have it, I can have it too. That's it. It's always a caveat. If you perform this work well, if you believe in a power. So there's always some type of condition. And I have to be hopeless. It says, I have these things circled, like I care to have it, and then hopeless. If I want this, I have to be real hopeless. I had to be hopeless, or guess what? I know everything. And I that's where I live. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nikki. Love it. I've got a couple of really quick questions. Let's just get into these real quick. David, in this reading, it talked about the simple religious idea or simple spiritual idea and the practical program of action. Well, I know that I've tried to do one without the other, either way it may be. And for me, it didn't work. Tell me a little bit about the relationship between the two of those and how they likely need to work together to be effective.
Well, for me, whenever I hear the word religion, it usually turns me off, turns me in another direction. But I got to remember it, and it said it right here. It's an idea. It's a simple religious idea. When we get to page 47, we're going to take a look at what's called a spiritual terms exercise. And as we look through that, we're going to be asked to take a look at some things and then honestly ask ourselves what they mean to us. And the goal of that exercise is to change our idea of what doesn't work and hold up to the light what does. And so for me, the word religious idea, even the term, that doesn't work for me. But spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, that does. So, in those days, it's the same. It really is. I mean, people may argue that and say, no, it's not. No, it's not. Religion is this. And it doesn't really matter. I'm not into that debate. But I do know this, that my ideas on religion or spirituality, whichever it may be, they begin to change as I begin to change in this program. It is God as we understood God. It is not God as I understand God. If I understand something, then I'm done. I'm finished. My book says no one can comprehend or define that power, which is God. That's understand to me. But what I understood at 1 year was different at 2 years, at 5 years, at 10. The more I've grown, the more I've understood more and more and more. So it doesn't matter what my idea was. Hang around, do this work, that idea is going to change. And so for me, the two run together, but at the same time, they're still very separate, if that makes any sense. So thank you, Justin.
Yeah, thank you. And that idea of constant growth and never arriving at complete understanding of a power greater than myself that I can't comprehend actually brings me peace. Whereas in the past, it brought me like hopelessness of, I've got to be able to understand this and grasp it. I'm grateful that now I embrace the fact that I don't know. Nikki, quick question for you. You identified yourself in one of those things here as a hopeless seeker, as a seeker. So what is the difference between being a hopeless seeker and maybe a healthy seeker, a seeker of truth? Kind of a philosophical question, but what are your thoughts on that, Nikki?
That's interesting. Did I use the word hopeless? Okay, that's cool. Oh, no, I did not. Okay, I see you there.
Nope, I put that in your mouth.
You're putting that in. Yeah,
Yeah.
Perfect. I love when people do that. So the difference between hopeless seeker is that I'm just seeking in the dark. I'm just doing what I know to be done. Here it is. I'm zombified. My pineal gland has been petrified. It's like it goes real deep. I'm the blind leading the blind. I'm a hopeless seeker because I'm just hopelessly seeking things and I have no idea of what I'm doing. And that's what I did. It's basically looking for the solution in the bottle, in his pants, in the fridge. You know what I mean? And in the bank account. So what does a hopeful seeker look like? Well, there's key words in our book, and I do love them. It's like a hopeful seeker is enthusiastic. Sometimes I know some of us, because we do this at the end of the thing, I don't know you guys, but sometimes we come on here and by the end of the recording, we are all so excited and enthusiastic after an hour and a half of talking about this power in this book. When we first come on, we're slow to pace, the three of us, and then we get all excited. The enthusiasm all the time. I was enthusiastic to come here. I know you guys were too, but it just gets bigger and bigger. If I'm going to search with hope, I'm going to do it wholeheartedly. I'm going to do it like my life depends on it, because it does. And this is really cool too. It's like, what does it look like? Well, it's like making the decision. Either I'm searching with my whole heart, God is everything or God is nothing. I mean, it's really black and white around here sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of room. It's a broad highway, but page 53 tells me that God is everything or God is nothing. Am I willing to pay that price of self-destruction? And I'm hopeful now, because that sounds really scary, all that talk. But it's like, no, I'm a seeker and I'm hopeful because I'm willing to pay the price. That's the other thing. I'm willing to pay that price. I don't want any part of self.
Thank you. I like how you took that in that direction of self-destruction can sound very scary, but look where myself got myself for all these years before recovery. That self needed to be destroyed. So good. Thank you for sharing those things. Before we wrap up, David, do you have any final takeaways from this?
Well, I just, there are so many. The one thing that I want to take away from it is don't get hung up on the word religion or the word spirituality or any of that kind of stuff. God, creator, spirit, source, whatever you may want to call it. This is God as we understood him. And really, it's not asking us to believe in anything. And people tell me all the time, David, that's a lie. But if you read step 2 very closely, it says we come to believe that a power. It doesn't say we come to believe in a power. It says we came to believe that a power greater than self could restore us to sanity. And when we move into that chapter, it will definitely explain that only thing is wrong is we're disconnected from power. Don't let terms get in the way of that. So that's my takeaway. Don't let terms get in the way. It'll change. Our ideas will change.
Awesome. Thanks, David. All right, Nikki, how about you? How about a takeaway from you?
A big takeaway today is don't accept things as from what people tell you. You have to seek. Here it is. It says, I wondered, what happened? ? What's this all about? ? I queried ? Be inquisitive, everybody. Don't just go because school told me to do this, because my country told me to do this, because my sponsor told me to do this. Get really inquisitive about yourself, about life, about this power, and about each other. That's my takeaway. Never stop asking questions and wanting the answers.
Thank you, Nikki. And I think my takeaway comes in the last phrase, a couple of phrases of what we read. Ebby was sharing this, if Bill cared to have it. And Bill says, I was shocked, but interested. Certainly I was interested. I had to be, for I was hopeless. If I'm not to the place where I am willing to, be a little bit open-minded and look at different solutions than I've already tried, I don't know that this is going to take. I have to be interested, for I am hopeless. If I'm not hopeless, I'm not there. So, and hopeless no longer, yes, it's a dark place to be, but in the dark, how dark it is before the dawn, right? And I think that's a really, really powerful thing. So everybody, if you want to learn more about what David and Nikki have going on, you can find that in the show notes. If you'd like to support RICO 12 and the projects we're working on, you can also do that through links in the show notes. We're really grateful for you to be here with us. Continue to join with us in the fellowship of the Spirit and trudge this adventurous and amazing and happy road of destiny with us. Work it. You are worth it.